Hey, welcome back to the Wide Right Podcast. Manny Navarro here from The Athletic, joined once again by Carlos Ledo of the MIA All Day Pod. It is Wednesday, October 23rd. It is FSU week, right around 1 p.m. And the Hurricanes are coming off a ridiculous 52 to 45 heart-pounding game at Louisville that they managed to win. And they get FSU this week. Not the same game that I thought would be played at this point in the preseason. FSU's 1-6, 1-5, but the Canes are 7-0, trying to get to the ACC championship game. Carlos, what were your takeaways from the win over Louisville?
I mean, going into it, we talked about it. We said it was going to be a shootout, and we knew that Braun was going to come in with a good offensive game plan. We knew the secondary was going to struggle. We saw all these things, and we felt like if the Hurricanes didn't get pressure on Tyler Shuck, that it was going to be a problem, that they weren't going to be able to sort of recover from that, and they'd have to punch their way out of it by scoring more points than Louisville. And I think the Hurricane offense did, a phenomenal job doing what they had to do to handle business. Again, the defense is worrisome. If you're going to play an opponent that can actually lock down the Hurricanes offense for a period of time, if you're not able to get things right on defense, that could spell disaster later on in the season. But it's good to see Ruben Bain back. He was a lot more active this game. The defense, secondary wise, I hope there's some changes on the horizon. Maybe some other guys could plug and play. Not necessarily a lot available there. Good to see Jalen Rivers back. But we'll see, man. It's a different animal this week, and not the kind that we expected coming to the season. Obviously, like you said, I know your favorite team is struggling. They're limping into this game. Renegade might come in with a couple knee braces, and Chief Osceola might have a like a plastic Nerf spear this game instead of like the regular one.
Yeah, it's an interesting matchup. We'll get to it. Not an exciting one by any stretch of the imagination. I broke down both teams earlier this morning statistically where they were updating all the numbers through last week, and Florida State is terrible.
Yeah,
Just much worse than I think anybody anticipated they would be, even if they did take a step back. It wasn't supposed to be this far back, but
yeah. I mean, a couple things that caught my eye. I was looking at PFF. They
mhm.
rank 130th in the country in run grade on offense. That's
Yeah,
insane. They're not running the ball well. 64th in passing grade. I'm surprised they're that high.
yeah.
77th in run defense, and their cover grade is a 72.5, which is ugh.
Yeah, pretty bad all the way around, Carlos. And we'll get into the game a little bit more. We're going to talk some more about Louisville. We're also going to get to your mailbag questions, but I just wanted to mention high up here in the show, in case you missed it on YouTube, I interviewed 2026 quarterback commitment Darian Coleman on Monday night. Him and his dad, his quarterback coach Balin Trujillo, joined me on the podcast. It was about a 25-minute interview or so. With him and his coach and his dad and just every now and then I'm going to get the opportunity to interview these recruits. I want to bring them on the podcast, so I included it here in the audio version. If you're gonna download this, where you normally listen to Wide Right, it'll be available. If not, just go back on the YouTube page to Monday and you can check out the interview. But big recruiting weekend for Miami coming up, Carlos. In terms of a lot of guys that they're trying to flip. Um, Coming down to come hang out at this game. DJ Pickett, five-star cornerback who's committed to LSU, is one of them. There's a bunch of different guys. FSU commits, Florida commits, guys that they're looking to impress here as the season goes on. And the reality is, I think they got past their biggest hurdle in terms of the regular season. One thing I've been writing several stories this week. One of them is actually on the coaching carousel and how things have sort of changed in the way schools are, um, going about their search process. Well, one of the changes is signing day got moved up 2 weeks. It used to be the third week of December. Now it's December 4th through the 6th, the early signing period. And so you're going to have a bunch of these high school guys making decisions earlier. They're not going to necessarily see what happens beyond the conference championship game. So Miami can go unbeaten, finish 13-0, win the ACC as fans are expecting. This recruiting class can go from, I think it's number 12 right now in the 247 composite, probably back into the top five like it was a year ago. And stacking classes ultimately, Carlos, is what this is all about. You want to have elite recruiting classes every single year. Darian Coleman is a blue chipper, a guy who's very excited about the future here. He's basically the linchpin for your 2026 class. You got him committed early. Um, this is all just sort of positive momentum that the program needs.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's really capitalizing on the season they're having right now and showing off Cam Ward and saying, "Listen, this is what we're capable of. And if we have the right quarterback and we got the right guys around him, we can make plays. We could be the number one country offense in the country, at least top two. And there's more to be had here if you guys are willing to come over and join this team. So I think this is the season, like we said before the season even started, man. We said this was Mario's most important year because it was time to show that there was a leap forward. Now he's got all his guys, like we talked about beforehand. He's got all his own groceries. He's cooking his own meal. There's no more excuses. There's no more Manny guys to blame. This is his team, and he went out in the portal and filled holes. So if he came out here and he laid an egg, things were going to sort of take a dip really quickly and go off the rails for this team. But luckily, so far they've capitalized on the transfer portal. They've capitalized on the momentum of the season, and they're starting to build that recruiting class to an elite level, which is good to see.
All right, let's recap a little bit what happened against Louisville because we had some interesting developments, Carlos. Number one, Jalen Rivers went inside to left guard for 20 snaps to allow Markel Bell to come back on the field. Miami didn't have necessarily its best game protecting Cam Ward. There were a few sacks. They were very fortunate that strip sack fumble was reversed, even though it was the right call. Very, very close to being the wrong way for them if that Louisville pass rusher gets there a half a second too early. But they gave up sacks, they gave up pressures, 10 pressures allowed, according to Pro Football Focus for the offensive line. I want to start with that. Are you concerned at all based on the performance of the offensive line? Because the rest of the offense did great. Sam Brown caught balls. You saw Damian Martinez run the ball well. Cam Ward did his thing, even though he missed some receivers here and there. I thought the offensive line was a little bit of an eye opener for me.
Well, we've said from the start of the season the offensive line wasn't playing their best, right?
Yeah.
Especially in the run game, they actually improved quite a bit in the run game this week, and I think a lot of that has to do with Damian Martinez being a hell of a lot more decisive running the football. I
Hmm.
think being benched for Mark Fletcher opened his eyes a little bit and forced him to be a little bit more aggressive, and you saw the results when he's not tiptoeing in the hole or sort of slow meshing it, and he attacks the line of scrimmage. It helps that offensive line because he's being decisive. They've been giving up pressures for weeks.
Yeah.
Some of that is Cam Ward hanging onto the ball. Some of it is the offensive line. But oddly enough, of the 10 pressures, Markel Bell gave up zero,
Right.
which is good to see. So I think, like we said at the beginning of the year, and I said last year, I think Jalen Rivers is a guard. I think his best position is guard. His feet aren't the greatest in terms of left tackles. He's got size. I don't think he's got left tackle size. He's got really good inside guard size. And to me, the fact that he was willing to take those snaps off from playing left tackle and sliding inside and allowing Markel Bell to shine a little bit of left tackle shows what kind of a teammate he is, shows his understanding of what the overall goal for the season is to be the best team they could possibly be. Because left tackles where the money's at, right? For offensive linemen. Anywhere else, it's a big
Absolutely.
difference in pay. But I think he also understands, or maybe it was communicated to him that, listen, you're not a first round left tackle. We're going to be very honest with you. You could be a first round right guard. You've got really good tape at right guard. You've got good tape at left tackle. Let's move you inside and out just to give you that flexibility to give you more tape for the NFL so they can see how versatile you are. And maybe that raises your draft stock a little bit. And I think, like I've always said from the beginning, I think their best offensive line is with Jalen Rivers at guard. I thought it would be Okunlola at left tackle, but apparently Bell's taking that job over. This might have been his best game at left tackle, even though it was limited snaps. The other thing they may have to address is right guard, and that's Cooper has been eh during the season, and it may be better to maybe slide in Matthew McCoy at right guard to see what else is available there. And maybe when Ryan Rodriguez comes back, if he's available, slide him in at right guard and see if that works to help improve this line even more. But I think they're pretty locked in for the most part. The center to me is still not as good as last season. That play there, he's gotten a little bit better over time. Still not great. But Francis Manuel struggled also against Louisville, giving up three pressures. It's been a combination of things, and I think not having that Cam McCormick guy at tight end to help with the blocking, both passing and running, has hurt the offensive line a little bit because you miss that extra additional battering ram, another guy you could line up as a six offensive lineman.
Right.
Um, but it's going to be the nature of the game. I think they've done a good job of overcoming it during the season and in this Louisville game. And Louisville has a good pass rush, right? So it wasn't like they were playing a terrible team that had no defensive line and they were getting all these pressures. So
Right.
at least there's progress in some areas.
Yeah, the one thing that was, and I mentioned this at the top, again, we're going to be critical of this team because we want to see them win a national championship, right? We want to see them
Yeah.
rise to higher levels, and this is what it's going to take. Cam said it himself. He missed some open guys early on in that game, just underthrew it, overthrew it a little bit. I don't want to say it was his worst game, but it was the one where I kind of noticed, hey, he's missing guys. This is the first time all season. I was
Mhm.
like, yeah, he's really missing guys.
He missed a few against Virginia Tech, I think, earlier on as well. It took him a while to get warmed up and get going. He was okay against Cal to start, still not his normal self, but
Mhm.
this guy, it's like I said before, man. I've said a bunch of times. He's like Jordan. He could start off, 3 for 17. If he goes in the fourth quarter, his first two shots, it's over. He's just gonna get rolling.
Yeah. Running the ball, Damian Martinez, I thought this was his best game, hands down. Obviously, the big touchdown run at the end. He got 12 carries, 89 yards, and a touchdown. Mark Fletcher, of course, fumbled, which he doesn't do very often. 13 carries for 73 yards. I thought he was playing great before the fumble,
Yeah,
and doing a good job catching the ball out of the backfield as well. Um, Good game for the receivers. Obviously, I mentioned it's funny in our pregame show. I think I mentioned to you Sam Brown would have the best day, and he did. I thought for whatever reason they would try to key in a little bit more on the other guys because Sam Brown hadn't been performing well, and sure enough, that's what happened.
yeah, he blew up. Credit to you. You got one right.
I finally,
No, you get them right all the time, which is a pain in the ass.
on the defensive side of the ball, which I know most of the fans want to talk about. Obviously, some troubling signs. I think the biggest thing were the blown coverages. I thought the broadcasters at ABC did a good job pointing out Jaden Harris being in the wrong place on one of the touchdown catches that was surrendered. There were other instances where Diani Hill just got beat in coverage by the guys he was supposed to be on, and you saw some young guys get into the game. Zaquan Patterson came in, played. I don't know if it's the most snaps he's played all season, but he played 21 snaps. Yeah, it was the most snaps he's played all season. First time he's played since the Virginia Tech game. Again, Zaquan Patterson, elite top 100 recruit, a guy that we talked about in the preseason as somebody that needed time to develop. I think now might be his time, Carlos.
Yeah, I agree. He was targeted twice, did not give up a reception. Compared to Mish Powell, he gave up only two receptions as well, but 29 yards. Um, the secondary in general, like we've talked about, I don't think they're where they need to be anywhere near it. They still have a lot of holes back there. There's not really much shuffling you could do. I think Jaden Harris has been pretty inconsistent, not just in pass coverage, but also in run fits. Some of the big plays they've given up in the run game this year have been because Jaden Harris doesn't feel right, and you've missed that last line of defense from the secondary in terms of getting that run stopped and getting somebody on the ground before it breaks 80 yards.
Yeah,
They've got to rotate Zaquan Patterson in just to see what he can do. The biggest disappointment this season, I think, in the secondary thus far has been Darryl Porter Jr. He was so good last year. I know he's playing a little bit out of position now as sort of
slot.
a nickel, more a slot guy. Gave up 122 yards against, according to PFF, against Louisville. Diani Hill right behind him with 75 yards. So it's a situation where, again, like we've talked about, if that defensive line doesn't get in the quarterback's face, doesn't create pressure, doesn't get sacks, and doesn't force a ball out early, that secondary is in trouble. And even oftentimes now against Louisville, they tried to play zone to make up for it, to have guys like we talked about catch the
Yeah.
ball in front of them, make plays, and they were still having guys run free all over the field. So it was a little disheartening.
Yeah, and I would say this. I think Kiko Maui Noah and Wesley Basaint, the missed tackles, the some of the mistakes that you're seeing them make is starting to add up here a little bit. I don't think they've necessarily been playing great. Kiko Maui had three missed tackles. The team had 10. He had three of the 10. Jaden Harris had two missed tackles. Bassine had one. So look, those guys, they're going to play a lot. But you did see Jalen Alderman get in the game here some more at linebacker. You saw Popo Aguirre get in there. He recovered the fumble, obviously, for the touchdown. But Alderman, is starting to play more. 16 snaps in this game. Didn't play. Played 8 snaps at Cal and didn't play until previously till the USF game. So he had a few days off. You're seeing Alderman kind of get back in the mix. He's a guy who played a lot last year for Louisville. So maybe you see more of that sort of change here over the final 5 games. And that's really what I'm going to be looking at, Carlos, because I don't think Miami's going to lose any of these last 5 games. I just want to see how the rotations sort of work out and how they prepare themselves for Clemson or an ACC championship game against SMU or Pitt or whoever it is that it ends up being, so that when they get in there, you kind of have an idea. Okay, this is our playoff roster, right? Can Zaquan Patterson elevate himself to a starting role above a Jaden Harris? Can somebody else step up at cornerback? I thought Jadis Richard actually played pretty well, all things considered. I might have been one of his best games. He wasn't the reason they were giving up a bunch of
No.
touchdowns. I thought he played really well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like you're talking about, right now the goal should be not only winning every game, but also figuring out who are the guys that you're going to count on long term, right?
Hmm.
You're definitely going to play Kiko Wamewano. You're going to play the guys that are maybe not playing their best, but they're your older guys. but you want to know that you could count on the younger guys behind them and give them a split in snaps, let's say 50-50. Or if Kiko's not playing well early on, you pull the plug and you put the next guy in, whatever the case may be. You find those guys you could count on. That way, when you're heading to, like you said, into the playoff run, it's an ACC championship game, you know that you're there with your best team. Ideally, you want to be peaking at the end of the season. You want to figure out who you can count on when the Bullets are flying. And the best way to do that is to put these guys in conference play and see what they can do.
Yeah, for sure. All right, I want to leave this little space here for my editor to insert the interview uh, with Darion Coleman and his family. So right here is where I want to make sure if you're tuning into the audio version that this is where you check out the Darion Coleman interview. In the meantime, let's go ahead and switch it back now to Florida State and get to the Florida State game for this week, Carlos. We've talked enough about Louisville. Big picture wise, I'm sure we'll get back to that again with the mailbag. But let's talk about this game against the Florida State Seminoles, Carlos, where Miami is going in as a 21-point favorite to 7 o'clock kickoff at Hard Rock Stadium. Florida State's 1-6, 1-5 in the ACC. Nothing seems to be going right for them. Is there any reason in your mind for Miami fans to be cautious going into this game?
Listen, the way the game should play out, right? There should be, like we talked about before, there should be guys hitting the transfer portal within the first quarter on that Florida State sideline. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if Chief Osceola runs out there and Renegade is painted orange and green and he's throwing up the U. And there is no spear. There's just Sebastian riding behind him bareback, uh, waving a waving a middle finger to the Florida State sideline. They're all going to hit the transfer portal. Listen, I don't like going into this game being so overconfident. To me, it's one of these games that you if you tiptoe in there and you think you're going to blow this team out without any effort, you get smacked around in the mouth a little bit, and it's a lot closer than you anticipated, and you don't want that. I've always been of the mind you kill a mosquito with an axe. So if you go in there, start fresh, start fast, start hard, and knock these guys out as quickly as possible. Get up as much as you can in the first quarter, and just keep the pressure on and run it up. And I think everybody remembers, at least Mario does, that 2022 game that was 45-3 and how they were embarrassed at Hard Rock. He's got that in his back pocket. So if he could put up 60, I'm pretty sure Mario's going to put up 60 and try to end Mike Norvell's career.
I don't know that he'll be able to do that. It's going to take a lot of money to get Mike Norvell out of Florida State. But just a couple numbers to share here, just about the stark difference in these two teams. Miami has the second ranked scoring offense in the country, 48 points a game. Florida State, 132nd, 15 points per game. Defensively, Miami ranks 55th in points allowed. It's just short of 23 points a game. Florida State is averaging 25 points allowed, which ranks 76th. Uh, Yards per play, Miami is first in the country, over 8 yards per play. Florida State is 127th, 4.5 yards per play. And defensively, Miami's giving up a little over 5 yards per play, which ranks 40th. And Florida State, 5.49 yards per play, 69th in the country. The offense is really been the issue for Florida State because they have had guys that make plays for them on defense. Patrick Payton's got 4 sacks. They've got other dudes that have stepped up at times. Last week at Duke, it was a 23-16 loss in Durham. First time Florida State has lost to Duke since they joined the conference, and um, embarrassing really for the program to have them just struggle the way it has. They rank 130th in third down offense, 110th, actually 128th in trips inside the red zone. Miami's been in the red zone 36 times offensively this season, Carlos. That's third among all FBS schools. Florida State's only been in the red zone 14 times through their first 7 games. That ranks 128th. It shows you just the stark difference in offenses there. Lawrence Toafili is their starting running back, 253 yards rushing on the season. Their quarterback going into this game is going to be Brock Glenn. He is completing literally 50% of his passes. That's it. He's got a 50% completion percentage. Cam Ward is completing 68.7 for over 10 yards an attempt, which is third nationally. When Brock Glenn actually hits receivers, he's averaging 5.3 yards per attempt. 2 touchdowns, 3 picks. Cam Ward, 24 touchdowns, 5 picks. This should be a complete and total mismatch. This very well could be the biggest blowout in Miami FSU history, which by the way, 47-0, I think is
On
the
both sides, yeah.
yeah, 47-0 is the largest. So in case you were wondering, what are you going to be looking for Saturday?
Well, listen, first of all, I love the fact that Florida State has scored less than the 40-year-old virgin this year, and that makes me so happy. They're like the Napoleon Dynamite of offenses. And defensively, yeah, they're not bad, but when you're on the field that much and your
Yeah,
offense can't get anything going, like there's nothing you could do. Eventually the dam's gonna crack wide open, right? And against this Miami offense, like I said, you give them you get a couple stops, you get things rolling, you think you've got them stopped, and all of a sudden they pop off a big play and they just get rolling and they start scoring a ton of points. So it's gonna be very difficult for Florida State this week. To me, Florida State's only shot in this game is if they turn Miami over
yeah.
on their half of the field. Not even turn them over. Turn them over on the Miami half of the field
All right.
within the 30-yard line in the green zone, red zone, and score points from there. And then offensively, when they do maybe get a stop here or there, they run the football and kill clock and just eat it up and try and keep the ball out of Cam Ward's hands. That's the best way they can go about it. Florida State's got nothing to lose. If I'm Mike Norvell, I'm calling the annexation of Puerto Rico. I'm calling all the trick plays I've got. I'm pulling everything out of the bag. I'm onside kicking it half the game. I'm at least maybe trying to pooch kick it up in the air to try and get them down to the 10-yard line on a fair catch. Whatever I got to do on kickoffs, whatever I got to do on punts, pull it all out because this could be very well the one game that saves my job or at least makes me feel good going into the offseason or shows recruits that, hey, yeah, maybe we didn't have the greatest season, but look at this. We went to Miami, the number 6 team in the country. We beat them at home. We pulled out all the stops, and we're capable of this when we're right. It's not going to happen, but that's what he's going to try and do, and what the only hope he has really.
Yeah, it's a long shot that this happens. Although I will say this, you mentioned the turnovers. Florida State is -10 in the turnover margin. They rank 133rd in turnovers gained. They've only been able to produce 3 turnovers as a defense. So what should that tell you? Well, they beat Cal at home. They played Duke within a touchdown. They actually held Clemson to 29 points. It was only 29-13. So maybe if a bunch of turnovers go their way, they'll have a chance to be in the game against Miami, but I just don't see how they win because they can't score enough points. So,
Yeah, like you said, and they can't get in the red zone, so that's why I say
yeah,
they've got to turn them over on Miami's half because they're not going to drive the field and score points.
yeah, for sure. All right. Enough with Florida State. I want to get to the mailbag now because there was a lot of mailbag participation this week, Carlos. Um, let's start off with this. Actually, before we get to that question, let me go back because somebody preemptively sent me a text this week or a
Oh,
tweet
geez.
this week saying, "Hey, I know you guys haven't called for questions," and I said, "All right, I'm not going to forget you. I'm going to make sure that I get this interview, rather this question into the mailbag." But he sent it to me on Monday before I sent the alert, so I have to go back through Twitter looking for the actual question here, because it was sent early. Let's see if I can find it. God, I can't find it now. There's
This
too
is this
many.
is good podcasting here.
I know this is excellent excellent podcasting. I
This is how we
apologize.
keep you. This is how we keep you guys entertained.
All right, let's just dive into the current questions. If I can find the old one, I apologize. You sent it to me Monday, which screws me up because then I got to sift
I'll
through
see if I can
Twitter.
find it while you're running the show there.
All right, this is from Franco Anton Skip Sucksmaker on
Oh, okay.
Twitter. He says, "How many players on FSU would start for Miami, Carlos? How many players on Florida State would start for Miami? Let's call up Florida State's roster here and see if there's somebody besides Patrick Payton that I could say, yeah, maybe he would start. Uh, Certainly nobody on the offense for this team this year would start for the Hurricanes. We can
No,
say that's a safe bet. Defensively, who would you take off of Florida State's roster? Azare Thompson or Thomas, their cornerback. He's not a bad corner at all. He's graded out pretty well. Ventrell Cypress, maybe. You take their cornerbacks, Carlos? Would you take the FSU corners over the guys you
I
got in Miami
mean
now?
it couldn't hurt. I mean the corners right now for Miami are playing great, so that might be the one spot that in safety.
Yeah, Shaheem
You might
Brown.
look
I
at.
would take Shaheem Brown.
Yeah, that'd be the two spots I look at.
Yeah, Daryl Jackson, who was at Miami before, has been okay for them. He hasn't graded out particularly excellent. Marvin Jones Jr. has not been a superstar by any stretch of the imagination on their defensive line. Josh Farmer, I think he'd help Miami on the defensive tackle spot in terms of depth. I think you could rotate him in there.
Yeah, but I don't think he'd be a starter.
No, I don't think he'd be a starter either. Yeah, to me, it's the corners and the safeties. Those guys are not terrible. They're halfway decent. I think that's probably it to answer your question there.
All right, I
Uh,
got it. I got the question that was sent in early.
all right, I appreciate you.
All right, it says asking before I missed a tweet this
There you go.
week. Who should the Canes be rooting for to lose in the ACC moving forward? If we lose a game, want to know who jumps us in Charlotte.
Excellent question. First of all, ever since college football went to this stupid format of 17 and 18 team leagues, where it's completely unbalanced and it's a free for all for the top two spots. The Big Ten, the SEC, same concept. You don't have divisions anymore. You open yourself up to some problems. And so Miami, Clemson, and SMU could all end up undefeated, Carlos, in terms of ACC play. SMU does have the one regular season loss to TCU, but there is a scenario where Clemson runs the table in the ACC, Miami runs the table in the ACC, and SMU runs the table in the ACC, and Miami gets left out of the conference championship game, even if it's unbeaten and ranked in the top 10 or top five in the country. Why? Because of tiebreakers. Uh, you could have all different sorts of tiebreakers that end up falling SMU's way. Pittsburgh, who's the one other remaining unbeaten team, first of all, they've got the toughest road left, even though they're 6-0 and unbeaten in the ACC so far. They get Syracuse on Thursday night, which is a game that you should definitely tune in to watch because Miami plays Syracuse before the end of the year, and it's a Thursday night. What the hell else are you going to be doing? Um, but they've got Syracuse, SMU, and Clemson on the schedule. So Pittsburgh is a team that technically you could root for in the games against SMU and Clemson, and they can help Miami clinch a spot in the ACC championship. So to me, those are teams you'd root for. And then anybody else who Miami has played already or will play, the Wake Forests of the world, the other ACC teams that are sort of weak that could help Miami's standings when it comes to tiebreakers. Those are the teams, opponents that Miami plays that don't play Clemson, that don't play SMU, and don't play Pittsburgh are the teams you should be rooting for. Make sense?
Yep, absolutely. It doesn't make sense that Miami would go undefeated, have an undefeated record, and lose out in the conference to getting into the conference championship game to a team that's got a loss on their record. That's ridiculous.
It's the way it was done, but these are
It's
the
the ACC,
idiots.
man.
These are the idiots running college football. They decided to go to, four power conferences with 18 teams. It's totally unbalanced. Think about the SEC and Big Ten. The Big Ten, Carlos, could technically have, I think, four or five teams that finish undefeated in conference play, and then you have to pick two out of those four to play in the conference championship. Not
That's what.
smart.
That's why they're tiebreakers like rock paper scissors.
Exactly. Pretty embarrassing stuff. All right, let's get to some more questions here. This is Brent Peterson. Which goes right to what we were just talking about. If Miami, Clemson, and SMU all tie for the same conference record, what's the tiebreaker? Who gets into the ACC championship game? All right, Brent. So basically, the tiebreaker is highest winning percentage of conference opponents. That's the one that would be the most important. Again, that's why you root for Miami, the teams Miami has played or will play versus the teams that Clemson and
And I
SMU are
think
playing.
the one behind that, the tiebreaker behind that, is the coaches gather in one spot and they either play tetherball, box ball, or ping pong against one another to see who gets a right to play in the conference championship.
I think if it's Rhett Lashley, Mario Cristobal, and Dabo Sweeney having to have a wrestle off, I think I like Miami's chances there. What do you think?
Yeah, yeah, I like Mario. I like Mario. But I mean, if it's ping pong or tetherball or or box ball, something a little bit more fair. I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know if Mario has the dexterity in his hands anymore to be able to handle those games.
By the way, would it be the worst thing in the world if Miami goes undefeated and doesn't play in the ACC championship game? Because if they go undefeated, they're going to get in the 12-team playoff.
Are they?
Wouldn't even have to play the ACC championship game.
Are they?
I know what happened to FSU last year, but these are 12 games. They're ranked sixth right now, Carlos. If they finish in the top
Hey,
five, they are getting into the playoff.
the old adage is you don't leave the game in the ref's hands, right? You don't leave the
Now,
game in somebody's hands to make a determination on you that's not based on a win. If you can get in the ACC title game and secure and cement your spot, you do that. If you get left out, you're leaving you're leaving your fate in the hands of people that have demonstrated over decades They do not like you. They do not want you around, and they will take every opportunity to pee on your parade that they can. Do not do it.
All right. This is a question from Franco Anton, another one from Skip Sucks maker. Are any of FSU's quarterbacks good enough to take advantage of our secondary? I don't think so.
I think Florida State would have a better chance if they brought Lee Corso and Burt Reynolds out of retirement and put them in uniform to try and score some points at running back.
That would be one hell of a just in time for Halloween getting Burt Reynolds out there. Yeah, I don't think Florida State has the quarterback. It's gonna take turnovers. It's gonna take a bunch of mistakes by Miami for Florida State to have any chance in this game. I don't think
Florida State
it's
might as well. I wouldn't be surprised if they run a hell of a lot of Wildcat or they come up with some gimmicky shit like that, some
hmm
single wing, anything to throw the Miami offense defense off.
right.
The other thing is because Miami's biggest weakness has been defending the pass. You would think that's where you try to exploit him, but Florida State can't throw the ball, and they don't have the receiver play to try and exploit Miami that way.
Ja'Kai Douglas is not a bad little receiver, but
Yeah,
they have not gotten enough just in terms of pass protection even Carlos. Their
yeah,
their their pass protection has been horrible, and that was supposed to be one of their strengths this year
yeah.
was the offensive line. They rank 106th among Pro Football Focus FBS offensive lines. They've allowed 69 pressures, which ranks 114th, and they've allowed 7 sacks, which is the same number Miami's offensive line has allowed for the season, by the way. But Miami's offensive line ranks 58th, not 106th.
And they've
So
also played a hell of a lot more snaps.
yeah, they have. They have for sure. All right.
I could see Douglas making some plays and being a pain in the ass, but I don't see them having enough to really threaten.
All right. This is from Sam Knowlton. Hot take. Hard Rock looks even more empty because the seats are nuclear blue. So even when people are there but standing up, it still looks empty, like empty seats because it's such a different color to anything we wear. All right, Sam. I know you're trying to defend Miami here, but the bottom line is uh, the University of Miami is never going to be like everybody else in college football. It's one of the few schools that plays away from campus in a professional sports stadium, not just away from campus, but far as hell from campus.
Yeah.
Secondly, nobody gives a damn. The fans that love Miami are spread out all over the country. The people who graduated from UM are spread out all over the country. This is a city, not a college town. And so while people can sit there and make fun of Miami and say, "Oh, your crowds suck," it's like, dude, look at USC on a Saturday. That Coliseum's pretty empty. Why? They're in the middle of Los Angeles. If you've ever been to the Coliseum, Carlos, it's like in the middle of a bad neighborhood in Los Angeles. It's just not,
You mean
and
like
I
Hard Rock?
yeah, it's just there. Like the whole attendance thing. If I'm a Miami fan, I laugh at it. Like, dude, you know what? Doesn't matter. We have the fans that talk the most shit on the internet. That's what Miami fans are known for.
Yep, pretty much. And the whole nuclear blue thing, I get it, the aqua seats or whatever.
hmm
I mean, if you're wearing orange and you're standing in front of your seat, I think you stand out. But you know how it is, man.
Yeah.
We maybe don't show up to the game. Sometimes we just. The other thing about it is this that people don't take into account how many people get stuck in the parking lot because they tailgated too hard.
Oh yeah.
We have to have the highest percentage in the country of that, right?
It
Like there
is.
is no way that anybody beats Miami in that area.
Drunks? No, drunk percentage is pretty high.
Like failure to reach the game because you tailgated too hard.
King Reezy says the struggles at the safety position under Guidry is like the struggles at the linebacker position under Manny. They seem to take a real conservative approach to development because Zaquan should be ready, and we should know something about Stafford's abilities at this point.
Well, Stafford's not a safety, and Zaquan's been, I'm pretty sure if Zaquan was ready, he'd be out there in the field. They're gonna start giving him more snaps now. They've tried to bring him along and get him as ready as possible, but they had to ride with Mish Powell and Harris and see what happened. At this point, they have no other choice. They got to start pulling the plug on that experiment and rotating Zaquan Patterson in, whether or not he's ready at this point, because it can't be any worse than what they've been getting back there, especially from Harris.
Jaden Harris has played the fourth most snaps of anybody on the team. He's a sub 60 pro football focus grade. Daryl Porter has played the third most snaps on the team, the most of any cornerback. He's 60. Mish Powell, 401 snaps, most of anybody. He's got let's see here, the like fifth or sixth highest grade among starters. Simeon Barrow. I mean, you look at the defensive line, Simeon Barrow, Ruben Bain, Tyler Barron, Wesley Bissainthe, Ahmad Moten, Akeem Mesidor. Those are the guys that play a ton that have gotten the best grades on the team. Mish Powell sort of comes in after that. Um, look, at some point or another, Zaquan Patterson will get his opportunity, but the coaches know better than we do because they're there at practice every single day, and you got to be able to trust safeties to do their jobs. Remember, it's not just about them being in the right spot; it's about them telling other people where to be because you got to know the whole defense. You got to see it from the backside and be able to position people correctly.
Yeah, and like I said, the other big thing that's being missed is the run fits. When you're not there in the right spot to clean it up and get a guy on the ground after 10 yards or 8 yards, then it busts into a 40-yard run. And we've seen that way too many times this season.
All right, this is from Jake Campbell 10 on Twitter. Has Carlos shifted his beef with Shannon Dawson to Lance Guidry, or has he kept his position with our OC and is simply adding our DC to the mix? If it's all Cam Ward, I think it's important to point out good players make coaches look good and vice versa. Take Norvell, for example.
I don't blame Guidry as much as I blamed Dawson last season, and here's why. We came into the season knowing they were deficient in the secondary, and that was going to be a problem. We knew it was going to be all based on what they could do with the defense line up front. We saw Guidry scheme things up with a lesser defense last year, we would think, when overall talent on the front six. Um, this season, what's happened is, the lack of ability in the secondary is a lot worse than we thought it was going to be. Believe it or not, we thought it would be bad. We didn't think it would be this bad. At this point, he's kind of handcuffed in what he can do. He even tried running some zone against Louisville, like we said this week, switch things up. He's pulling everything out of his pocket that he can. It's just at this point, it seems to be a player issue, a player ability issue. Maybe Zaquan Patterson helps. Maybe the other guys that step in help. But at this point, I don't think it's as much Guidry as it is on the players. Offensively, yes, you've got to give Dawson a little bit more credit this year. And I do think a lot of it is Cam Ward. And yes, you can say that players make coaches look better, but I think you can also point to instances where that offense has looked a little disjointed at times and where you see Cam Ward basically making plays out of nothing a lot of times.
Yeah.
Most of the big plays you see this season is Cam Ward scrambling back there, waiting for someone to break open, and then hitting them once they break loose. We just talked about it this weekend. The second time we've seen it where Cam Ward breaks loose, he's rolling left, buying extra time, and Jacoby George breaks to the back of the end zone where he wasn't open initially, but on that secondary route break, gets to the back of the end zone, gets open, and scores a touchdown. We see a lot of that with Cam Ward. We also see a lot of Cam Ward changing plays, especially late in games. Obviously they give him the freedom to do that. That's part of coaching. You have your player do that. But there's a lot that Cam Ward puts on his shoulders that isn't necessarily play calling. And what you want to see is a coach that could take not just Cam Ward and have them score a ton of points, but you want to see him take Emory Williams and score a ton of points, which they weren't able to do last year. You want to see him come into a game with a game plan that their first reads, their first scripted plays are busting loose, and you're scoring on opening drives and running the ball up and down the field and doing certain things that aren't dependent on Cam Ward just sort of freestyling, right? And that being
Right.
your offense.
Yeah, a lot of backyard football. I will say I thought, and I don't know if this was by design or if this was ultimately the receiver making the play, but I thought the touchdown pass to Brown, I think it was the first half where it was like a 49-yard touchdown
Yeah.
pass where he ran into the space where the secondary wasn't. It either looked like a delayed release from sort of a short curl pattern where he ran a short curl and then just took off towards the middle of the field where the open space was. But whatever it was beautiful job by the people on the field.
That's an air raid concept. So
Hmm.
basically, what happens is with air raid, what they'll do is they'll spread you out. They'll run an initial concept and they'll have options off that concept. And the basic tenet of air raid football is run to open grass, right?
Hmm.
So if they're playing zone, you find the hole in the zone where you fit in that route concept. Or if they're playing man, you run away from man, so long as you're within a route structure where you're not running into somebody else. And that's what Sam Brown did. He did a great job of reading what the coverage was doing and ran to open grass.
Yeah, it's a great play. And ultimately that's you took advantage of what Louisville was doing and you exposed them. All right. Andrew V, you just asked a big thing that we talked about with the defense is what's the biggest issue with the defense and can it be fixed with better play calling or personnel? I think, Andrew, just to surmise what we just talked about, if Zaquan Patterson, I'm going to say this, if Zaquan Patterson becomes like an ACC freshman of the year type talent over the last 6 games of the season in the playoffs, I think Miami can fix its issues on defense. The question is that going to happen?
Right, and I think you need better linebacker play in terms of tackling,
Hmm.
specifically from Manoa. I think I think the biggest issue is going to be moving forward. Can they tackle better and can they be in the right spots? That's the
Hmm.
biggest thing. I think if they could at least be competent, if they could at least not blow assignments and
Yeah.
do the basic things right, I think this defense will take a step forward.
Asher Wildman, continuing the theme on the secondary. What is it that they aren't getting? Are they that much slower than the wide receivers? Is it the scheme? He wants to know if Damari Brown will be back this year. He goes, it's mind-boggling. I don't think Damari Brown will be back this season. I know Mario said that there's a chance he could be, and maybe there is. When you get to the ACC championship game in the playoff, maybe at that point he's had more time to heal, and he could still earn himself a red shirt for this season. But I think ultimately here, brother, the issue is just talent. Like Jaden Harris was a converted soccer player, turned football player, a three-star kid out of the Georgia area. He's a guy that you try to develop and hope that he gets it right. Mish Powell was a no-star super smart kid that was supposed to go to an Ivy League school, uh, you know, former walk-on at Washington, who has just blossomed into a good, solid player. But he's not a five-star, can't miss first round safety. And same thing for Jaden Harris. And then the secondary, we've talked about the cornerbacks for years. How bad did they need Cormani McLean, right? Or somebody like Cormani McLean, where we said they need a five-star cornerback. They need somebody who is an elite corner. Daryl Porter Jr. is somebody they took off of West Virginia's roster. Um, who else? Jadis Richard came from Vanderbilt. He was a 3 or 4 star kid. This is not the way the blue bloods do it, brother. Like they go out and they recruit the Ohio States and the Alabamas and Georgias of the world get the 5 star cornerbacks and the 5 star safety. Mario hasn't done that yet. That's what they're trying to do with this class. That's why a guy like DJ Pickett is such an important flip because you're trying to upgrade the level of talent at that position. You did it on defensive line. You got the 5 star D lineman. You got some good I think linebackers that are just sort of growing. Like Popo Aguirre, I think is going to be a good player here.
Yeah.
But he's a second year guy. You got some elite offensive linemen, right? You've recruited that position well. You got some elite running backs. Mark Fletcher's a beast. You got some good receivers that just haven't got an opportunity yet. Jojo Trader is going to be a star here. So I just think there's certain positions that he hasn't recruited elite at an elite level yet, and I think cornerback is one of them.
Yeah, and the problem is, there hasn't been enough balance on the roster in terms of the depth of talent when he came in here. So he's sort of patching holes where he can, and then starting to build up the different areas where he finds the need to sort of focus on each recruiting cycle. There's going to be a point in time where now you've got enough depth and enough
Hmm.
consistency of depth at each position where you can go out and just focus on getting the best available talent. Until then, you're going to have to continue to use the transfer portal to your advantage. I wouldn't be surprised next year if they come up with two or three guys in the secondary in the transfer portal if that's their area of focus, along with the quarterback.
Yeah, it just depends, and you have guys that are playing. OJ Frederic is playing, but he's a freshman. It's like again, true freshman.
I think they've
Cam
got to find a way to slide Porter back outside and get somebody to take the slot, and maybe that'll help.
maybe it will. I don't know. All right, this is from Rodney King. Rank the rest of Miami's football schedule from easiest to hardest. All right, I'm gonna go easiest to hardest. Uh,
Florida
I'm
State,
I'm gonna say Wake Forest is the easiest. That's
you
a
would,
home
wouldn't
game.
you? You would.
I would say, well, Florida State would be next, then Duke, then Georgia Tech because it's a road game, and then Syracuse is the toughest that's left on paper. Syracuse has
I,
three receivers that rank in the top 60 in receiving yards.
yeah, I agree. I'd just flip Wake and Florida State.
All right. Um,
Mostly because Wake may be able to coach up a scheme to keep them in the game. No.
Wake's talent is really bad, and they're not good. They rank last in the league in defense, Carlos. Ambivert, Mr. Sears 92. Zaquan is ready. He's going to start by the end of the year, if not start right away. He's seeing 30 plus snaps a game and is in Stafford a corner. No, he is not seeing 30 plus snaps a game. He just played a season high. What was it? I told you 20.
18 or 20 or something like that.
Yeah, 18 or 20 this last game. So, yeah, he is not there yet, but there is a possibility before the end of the year is up, he will be a starter. We will see. All right. This is from Rashawn 954. Do you think Cam can make the Ring of Honor for one amazing season? Yes. I think
Yeah, absolutely.
if he wins the Heisman Trophy, if Miami wins the ACC with him at quarterback, I think he will be maybe the first transfer ever to be put in the Ring of Honor.
Hey, and you know, if Cam Ward deserves to, would he be considered the greatest quarterback, college quarterback in UM history? If he, continues this trend in terms of his numbers and if he wins a national title?
Yeah, I mean, Vinny won the Heisman, was the first overall pick, and had a long NFL career.
Right, but
Uh,
let's not talk about the NFL. I'm just talking about college.
yeah, if we're just talking about college. I think yes, I think there's definitely that opportunity. Vinny did not win a national title here. Um, so I think yes, I think between everything he's done with the numbers and potentially, winning a Heisman Trophy, yes, I think he could be the greatest quarterback in Miami history.
Yet when I said Jose Borregales should be considered maybe the greatest kicker in UM history after having an amazing season, after 1 year, everybody told me I was full of shit because he didn't play more than 1 year. Back at you guys. Suck your own words.
All right, this is from Winston Wolf.
Not that I hang on to things.
No, not at all. Not at all. This is from Winston Wolf, Thomas on Twitter. Best memory of the Miami FSU rivalry for each of you. For me, it's the 2000 game in the Orange Bowl, aka Wide Right 3. Legit felt like the surface of the sun. It was so hot, and the sideline was so full of ex-Canes, they were almost spilling onto the field. Shockey had the winning TD. Yes, for me, that was without question the best moment. I was on the field for that, or actually in the stands for that.
Yeah,
I think if I had to pick one that I watched on television, it's the 87 game where they won in Doak Campbell with the
Michael
two-point
Irvin
conversion.
touchdown. Yeah.
Yeah, and the Michael Irvin touchdown.
Yeah, for me, obviously 2000 is the greatest one in my mind just because, the program had struggled for so long. Florida State had been kicking our ass. People hang on to the 45-3 and all this kind of shit. I hang on to 47-0. That 47-0 game to me was one of the worst experiences as a Hurricane fan against Florida State I've ever had.
Hmm.
My favorite one was one I was at was the 92 game, was wide right two. I remember getting to the stadium with my older brother and his friend, and as soon as we walked out of the tunnel and looked out, we saw Tamarick Vanover catching the kickoff and running it all the way back to open the game, and being like, "Holy shit, what's going to happen today? Hopefully, this is not the way the game goes." And
Hmm.
just seeing an incredible football game where two teams just basically going to war, man. You had Michael Barrow have that hit, probably the greatest hit in Hurricane history, right? And then Florida State also doing the same thing on the other end. Yeah, it was just one of those games where it was every play seemed like it mattered, and was critical to the outcome, and it was just incredibly fun. It was so awesome to be there.
Yeah. Going to the Orange Bowl was amazing, man. I wish a lot of people today would have been able to experience that.
Yeah, there's no words to describe that when that stadium was rocking and that thing started swaying, and you literally felt like you were on an erector set.
Yeah, it really was fun. This is from Tony Perez, Big Chilean 63. Do you think we see Emery or Poffenbarger this Saturday? Yes, I think we see Emery.
I think we see Emery, we see Poffenbarger, I think we see Judd, I think we see, we might strap a helmet on the conditioning guy with a handlebar mustache and throw him out
Yeah.
there. We see everybody Saturday, hopefully. And we see Renegade again. We see Renegade and Osceola in the orange and green, baby.
All right. Armando Zagiri, what is the outlook for Miami and FSU the next 4 years? The rivalry seems to go in 3 to 4 year waves recently with FSU winning three straight. I think you know what the outlook is. Florida State's 1-6 right now. The recruiting class is falling apart. The transfer portal is not working out for them. I think they're headed towards dark times right now. I did not expect this. I did not expect it after such a big turnaround 2 years in a row. I thought for sure that they had things going in the right direction, but the culture is not what it needs to be.
Yeah, man. And I think, at this point, because of your therapy bills, they need to actually make BetterHelp and a sponsor of the podcast because of how you've been using them this season, thanks to Florida State's debacle and their decline. It's been hard on you. It's been tough on you, and I'm just glad I've been here for you during the struggles. Shoulder to cry on. I got to give you some whiskey and some bourbon when you needed
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
But yeah, man, it's pretty terrible. Unless Mike Norvell has some serious Gorilla Glue and duct tape hidden away over the next couple of years, this thing is going to come apart really quickly.
JK Slay says, can we talk about the decision not to kick touchbacks? If you cover it absolutely perfect, it's marked at the 18-yard line. Touchback is 25. Is the risk of a game-changing TD really worth 7 yards? All right, JK, I'm going to tell you this. Sometimes you can't control whether or not you have a touchback. Jose
Yeah.
Borregales, I don't know if you noticed, but there were a lot of extra points and field goals in this last game for Miami and Louisville. A lot of kicks being done. I think he just got tired. He didn't get it into the end zone like he probably wanted to. The wind might have been blowing in. I don't think, I think Jose Borregales is trying to get the touchback. every single chance that he can get. In fact, now that you mentioned that, I'm gonna go look at kickoffs and see what his touchback percentage is. He's had 55 kickoffs this year, 38 touchbacks. All right. I mean, that's a pretty good percentage on touchbacks when you're also having to kick a bunch of extra points. So just saying. All right. Let's just start to wrap this up here, man. We got to get done with this thing. Hurricane Q16V Lover says, "What, Manny? What's your take on the DB coaching development? Is the perceived lack of progress due to coaching scheme, inexperience, all of the above? Defensive line is not really producing against better teams, and how does this staff not only get better results but convince the top DBs to sign? Go Canes." Well, you got to win championships. Got to start by winning league championships. I think a lot of the best defensive backs in the country, and I'm doing this off the top of my head, Hurricane Q. Uh, from what I remember of the last, I don't know, 15 to 20 signing classes, most of the top TBs always end up going to the best programs in the country. Like you don't see many examples of DB saying, "Well, I'm gonna go to, I don't know, let's just make up a team here,
Colorado.
Mississippi State, right? Because Mississippi State had one good year. Well, I'm gonna go to Ole Miss this year because Lane Kiffin is there." They usually all end up going to Ohio State. They usually all end up going to Florida State or Georgia,
Clemson.
Clemson. Right? It's the same thing. And Miami. Let's be honest here. Outside of Cam Kitchens and James Williams, where's the long? I'm talking about in the last 10 years, 5 to 10 years. Where's the long list of DBs? Jaquan Johnson, has he had a big prolific NFL career? No. A lot of the other guys that were on that 2017, I'm trying to think of all the names right now.
Cedric Redwine.
Yeah, I mean,
The best one we've had at corner for a while was probably Michael Jackson.
right. And he was had a cup of coffee essentially in the NFL. So it's just like receiver. It's the same thing as receiver. It's not just DB at Miami. You have to produce. You have to put guys in the Miami stopped doing that for a long time. So to me, it starts with recruiting better talent, starts with player development, starts with some continuity in that room. Having Lance Guidry here maybe for the next 5 years versus just having him for two would help the situation. Having the same DB coach, a guy who puts guys in the NFL the next couple of years would help. All that. I think that's how you start to change it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's long term, that's the only way you can do it is by recruiting better players. And that takes results on the field. So the better you are on the field, the better chance you have with these DBs because your profile rises as a program. Moving forward, I think, like we talked about, you got to find ways to create pressure and help that secondary. Maybe some of it is you start using more blitz packages where those guys in the secondary, those corners, those slot guys are coming more often, and you're dropping guys out and making it more confusing for the quarterback. I still think they should use some more 3-3-5. That seemed to be helpful last year. They have the talent to do it. They have guys that can slide inside, like Mesidor and Bain can slide inside, and then use other guys in other areas just to create confusion for the offense. But other than that, I think you're spot on. It has to take winning, and it has to take recruiting.
Yeah, for sure. All right, this is from Ruben Valorio on Twitter. Why is a lot of the national media favoring Clemson over Miami to win the ACC championship? Seems to me that although they are winning blowouts, their strength of schedule isn't impressive. I agree, Ruben. They have not played a bunch of great teams. In fact, before they beat Virginia this past weekend, Clemson's 5 wins were against teams with losing records and terrible records. So you're right. But they will see a step up in competition in the weeks ahead. I mentioned them having a trip to Pittsburgh. I'm trying to remember who else Clemson has on the schedule. I don't have it right in
I'm
front of
set.
me.
Was it SMU? No, it wasn't SMU.
No, they don't have SMU, but there are better teams ahead, teams with winning records. They first of all, they've got South Carolina, who, as you remember, just gave Alabama a ridiculous game, and they've got one of the best defensive lines in the country. That's the last game that they play. Um, they've got Pittsburgh, oh, and Virginia Tech. They got to play at Virginia Tech, and they get Louisville. So they've got to go through Louisville, Virginia Tech, and Pittsburgh is their next 3 games. So we'll find out how good Clemson really is here in the weeks ahead.
and why is the media hyping them up? Because they've done it in the past, and Miami
Yeah,
hasn't. They can do it yet.
absolutely. Miami has not won the ACC yet.
No.
All right. Trying to get to the end of this. This seems like there's just a bunch of them. This is from Mike Jones, Jonesy713. Is it just me or has Kiko taken a decent step backwards this year? Seems like he's missing tackles more and getting completely smoked in coverage. I think what happens, Carlos, is when you transfer in from another school, that first year, they may have film on you from Washington State, but it's sort of an adjustment period. But then you spend the whole summer, hey, this is Kiko Mauinoa, right? He was one of the best players in the ACC. What are his weaknesses? Well, everybody writes a book on him, right? And they've got the book, and now they know what to take advantage of. And that's what great players do. Great players reinvent themselves. They figure out ways to be effective when they're not, and Kiko's struggling with that this year.
Yeah, and I think what's happened game over game is he wants to make plays so badly that he overruns a lot of plays, that he comes in too hard, he doesn't break down, he doesn't do the little things leading up to
Yeah.
the tackle, leading up to the play, that help finalize the play, that help make the tackle, that help be in the right gap. So those are the things to me that he's doing. I think he's pressing a little bit too much. I think he's doing trying to do too much to try and overcome the bad play early on. And maybe trying to think that, hey, listen, if I don't make a big play, then this guy's going to bust. The secondary's not going to be there to help me out. All those things play a big factor.
Yep. All right. Last one here, Carlos. Gary Rhombus says Cam Ward is a generational talent. If Miami doesn't go far in the college football playoff, did Mario waste this rare opportunity like Lincoln Riley did last year with Caleb Williams? Would Mario ever get a QB like him again if the defense holds this team back? Yes, I think there's a chance after this season that Mario could get future quarterbacks because of what Cam Ward has accomplished to this point. Would it be a waste or a waste of an opportunity? I don't know, Carlos. I mean, you look at college football. Texas just lost at home to Georgia. Georgia lost to Alabama. Alabama lost to Vanderbilt. Ohio State has a loss already to Oregon. I think this is a year where a team like Miami could surprise and win a national title, even if most of the country doesn't think they could. Would it be a wasted opportunity? Would I sit here and say it's a wasted opportunity? You wasted Cam Ward's uh, great year. I don't know that I could say that with a straight face because I still don't think this is the best team aside from Cam Ward, right? Outside of the quarterback position, I don't know that Miami has the best player in the country at any other position on the field.
No, I agree. And I think if they win the conference championship and make the playoff and get a bye and they lose in that first game, there's no way to say it was a bad season. It'll be the first conference championship in 20 years of being the ACC for this team. It'll be the first undefeated regular season since 2002, I believe. So they would have taken a quantum leap forward in terms of production on the field as a program, and it would be impossible for me to look at that and say that it was a wasted season. We also have to. I know it's the season's going great, guys. I know we're reveling in it, and we see the undefeated season in the headlights, and it's down the road. It's right there. We could almost touch it. We could almost taste it, but it's not over yet, right? And we have to understand that there are deficiencies with this team that are pretty glaring that we've been pointing out throughout the season that are likely going to hold them back from being finishing undefeated or finishing with a national championship. So temper your expectations, take it game by game. If they don't win the national title but win the ACC, put that in your back pocket and say thank God because we've been having a hell of a lot of mediocrity and misery with this program over the last 20 years. It's about time we get to enjoy something. Don't pee on the parade just because it didn't end with a title.
All right. Well, I lied. I got one more for you just because this one interested me. This is from Andy Adams 72. He says, "Have UM ever had a quarterback beat Florida and Florida State in the same year, regular season?"
Then Brock Berlin
Yes.
twice.
Yes. So did Steve Walsh. So did Ken Dorsey.
Yeah.
You just gotta go back to when Miami played Florida because they beat them most of the time in the
Yeah.
last 30 years whenever they played Florida. So
Didn't Stephen Morris?
I don't know. I know it's not. There's more than one guy for sure.
Yeah,
I,
there's a
I
big list.
There's a list. There's a list of probably 4 or 5 guys that have done it. So,
But I think only one beat Florida State twice in one season and Florida in the same season.
right. 2004, 2003
Right.
rather. Right. Hey, thanks for tuning into Wide Right. We appreciate it. Carlos, anything for people to check out with the MIA All Day Pod? Or are you not doing that right now?
Yeah. I'm gonna do it at some point. I may put it up before the game on Saturday. I should put it up before Saturday. And Raul's been hounding me to get on, so I'm gonna try and let him do it.
All right. Make sure you check out the MIA All Day Pod. Make sure you buy some t-shirts from Carlos. In any way that they can do that, Carlos. Should I advertise there for the
Yeah, I
t-shirts?
mean, if you want to, if listen, my wife does the custom t-shirts, she does custom tumblers, she does everything. If you want to look at her Instagram page, it's love LOVE if you guys don't know how to spell and light couture. Couture is COUTURE on Instagram. She lists everything she puts up there. If you want to name any MIA all day stuff, let me know. We can get it through there.
All right. Thank you, Carlos, for coming on. We will talk to you guys next week after Miami beats the crap out of Florida State.
Yes, and I'll be here to with a little towel for Manny to cry into.
See you guys next week.
Peace.